Chapter 2 Land of Pure Life. Jinardhwaj, the governor of Kashmir, wanted to broadcast to the entire world that the Nilkant had appeared in his capital city, not in the other frontier towns like Takshila, Karachappa, or Lothal, his Srinagar. But the bird courier had arrived almost immediately from the Meluhan capital, Devagiri, the abode of the gods. The orders were crystal clear. The news of the arrival of the Nilkant had to be kept secret until the emperor himself had seen Shiva. Jinardhwaj was ordered to send Shiva along with an escort to Devagiri. Most importantly, Shiva himself was not to be told about the legend. The emperor will advise the supposed Nilkant in an appropriate manner, were the exact words in the message. Jinardhwaj had the privilege of informing Shiva about the journey. Shiva, though, was not in the most amenable of moods. He was utterly perplexed by the sudden devotion of every Meluhan around him. Since he has been transferred to the governed natural residence, where he lived in luxury, only the most important citizens of Srinagar had access to him. "My lord, we will be escorting you to Devagiri, our capital. It is few weeks' journey from here," said Jinardhwaj as he struggled to bend his enormous and muscular frame lower than he ever had. "I'm not going till somebody tells me what is going on. What the hell is this damn legend of Nilkant?" Shiva asked angrily. "My lord, please have faith in us. You will know the truth soon. The emperor himself will tell you when you reach Devagiri." "And what about my tribe?" "They will be given lands right here in Kashmir, my lord. All the resources that they need to lead comfortable life will be provided for." "Are they being held hostage?" Oh no, my lord," said a visibly disturbed Jinardhwaj. "They are your tribe, my lord. If I had my way, they would live like nobility for the rest of their lives. But the laws cannot be broken, my lord. Not even for you. We can only give them what had been promised. In the course of time, my lord, you can decide to change the laws you feel necessary. Then we would certainly accommodate them anywhere." "Please, my lord," pleaded Nandi, "have faith in us. You cannot imagine how important you are to Meluha. We have been waiting for a very long time for you. We need your help. Please help me, please." The memory of another desperate plea from a distraught woman years ago returned to haunt Shiva as he was stunned into silence. "Your destiny is much larger than these massive mountains." "Nonsense. I don't deserve any destiny. If these people knew my guilt, they would stop this bullshit instantly." "I don't know what to do, Bhadra." Shiva was sitting in the royal gardens on the banks of the Dal Lake, while his friend sat on his side, carefully filling some marijuana into a chillum. As Bhadra used the lead stick to bring the chillum to life, Shiva said impatiently, "That's a cure for you to speak, you fool." "No, that's actually a cure for me to hand you the chillum, Shiva." "Why will you not counsel me?" asked Shiva in anguish. "We're still the same friends who never made a move without consulting each other." Bhadra smiled. "No, we are not. You're the chief now. The tribe lives and dies by your decisions. It cannot be corrupted by any other person's influence. We are not like Prakritis, where the chief has to listen to whosoever is the loudmouth on their council. Only the chief's wisdom is supreme amongst the Ganas. That is our tradition." Shiva raised his eyes in exasperation. "Some traditions are meant to be broken." Bhadra stayed silent. Stretching his hand, Shiva grabbed the chillum from Bhadra. He took one deep puff, letting the marijuana spread its munificence into his body. "I've heard just one line about the legend of Nilkant," said Bhadra. "Apparently, Meluha is in deep trouble, and only the Nilkant can save them." but I can't seem to see any trouble out here. Everything seems perfect. If they want to see real trouble, we should take them to our land. Bhadra laughed slightly. But what is about the blue throat that makes them believe you can save them? Damned. If I know, they are so much more advanced than us. And yet they worship me like I am some god, just because of this blessed blue throat. I think their medicines are magical though. Have you noticed that the hump on my back has reduced a little bit? Yes, it has. Their doctors are seriously gifted. You know, their doctors are called Brahmins, like Ayurvedi, asked Shiva, passing the chilam back to Bhadra. Yes, but the Brahmins doesn't just cure people. They are also teachers, lawyers, priests, basically any intellectual profession. Talented people, sniffed Shiva. That's not all, said Bhadra in between a long inhalation. They have a concept of specialization. So, in addition to the Brahmins, they have a group called Kshatriyas, who are the warriors and rulers. Even the women can be Kshatriyas. Really? They allow women in their army? Well, apparently, there aren't too many female Kshatriyas, but yes, they are allowed into the army. No wonder they are in trouble. The friends laughed loudly at the strange ways of the Meluhans. Bhadra took another puff from the chilam before continuing his story. And then they have Vaishyas, who are the craftsmen, trader, and businessmen people. And finally, the Shudras, who are the farmers and workers. And one caste cannot do another caste's job. Hang on, said Shiva. That means that since you are a warrior, you cannot be allowed to trade at the marketplace. Yes. Bloody stupid. How would you get me any marijuana? After all, that is the only thing you are useful for. Shiva leaned back to avoid the playful blow from Bhadra. All right, take it easy. He laughed. Stretching out, he grabbed the chilam from Bhadra and took another deep drag. We are talking about everything except what we should be talking about. Shiva became serious again. But seriously, strange as they are, what should I do? What are you thinking of doing? Shiva looked away, as if contemplating the roses in the far corner of the garden. I don't want to run away once again. What? Asked Bhadra, not hearing Shiva's tormented whisper clearly. I said, repeated Shiva loudly, I can't bear the guilt of running away once again. That wasn't your fault. Yes, it was. Bhadra fell silent. There was nothing that could be said. Covering his eyes, Shiva sighed once again. Yes, it was. Bhadra pulled his hand on his friend's shoulder, pressing it gently, letting the terrible moment pass. Shiva turned his face. I'm asking for advice, my friend. What should I do? If they need my help, I can't turn away from them. At the same time, how can I leave our tribe all by themselves out here? What should I do? Bhadra continued to hold Shiva's shoulder. He breathed deeply. He could think of an answer. It may have been the correct answer for Shiva, his friend. But was it the correct answer for Shiva, the leader? You have to find that wisdom yourself, Shiva. This is the tradition. Oh, the hell with you. Shiva threw the chilam back at Bhadra and stormed away. It was only a few days later that a minor karwa consisting of Shiva, Nandi and 3 soldiers were scheduled to leave Srinagar. The small party would ensure that they moved quickly through the realm and reached Devagiri as soon as possible. Governor Chandravanshis was anxious for Shiva to be recognized quickly by the empire as the true Nilkant. He wanted to go down in history as the governor who found the Lord. Shiva had been made presentable for the emperor. His hairs had been oiled and smoothened. Lines of expensive clothes, attractive earrings, necklace and other jewelries were brought to adorn his muscular frame. His fair face had been scrubbed clear with special Ayurvedic herbs to remove years of dead skin and decay. A carvet had been fabricated out of cotton to cover his glowing blue throat. Beads had been cleverly done on the carvet to make it look like the traditional necklace that the Meluhan men wore while on religious exercises. The carvet felt warm on his still cold throat. "I will be back soon," said Shiva as he hugged Bhadra's mother. He was amazed that the old lady's limp was a little less noticeable. Their medicines are truly magical. As a morose Bhadra looked at him, Shiva whispered, "Take care of the tribe. You are in charge till I come back." Bhadra stepped back, startled. "Shiva, you don't have to do that just because I am your friend." "I have to do that, you fool. And the reason I have to do, that you are more capable than me." Bhadra stepped up and embraced Shiva, lest his friend notice the tears in his eyes. "No, Shiva, I'm not. Not even in my dreams." "Shut up. Listen to me carefully," said Shiva as Bhai smiled sadly. "I don't think the Ganas are at any risk out here, at least not as much as we were at Mount Kailash. But then, if you feel you need help, ask Ayurvati. I saw her while the tribe was ill. She showed tremendous commitment to save us all. She is worth trusting." Bhadra nodded, hugged Shiva again, and left the room. Ayurvati knocked politely on the door. "May I come in, my lord?" This was the first time she had come into presence since that fateful moment 7 days back. It seemed like a lifetime to her, though she appeared to be her confident self again. There was a slightly different look about her. She had the appearance of someone who had been touched by the divine. "Come in, Ayurvati, and please, none of these lords' business. I'm still the same uncouth immigrant you met a few days ago." "I'm sorry about that comment, my lord. It was wrong of me to say that, and I am willing to accept any punishment that you may deem fit." "What's wrong with you? Why should I punish you for speaking the truth? Why should this bloody blue throat change anything?" "Yes, you will discover the reason, my lord," whispered Ayurvati with her head bowed. "We have waited for centuries for you." "Centuries? In the name of Holy Lake, why? What can I do that any of you smart people can't?" "The Emperor will tell you, my lord. Suffice it to say that from all that I have heard from your tribe, if there is one person worthy of being Nilkant, it is you." "Speaking of my tribe, I've told them that if they need any help, they can request you. I hope that is all right." "It would be my honor to provide any assistance to them, my lord." Saying this, she bent down to touch Shiva's feet in the traditional Indian form of showing respect. Shiva had resigned himself to accepting this gesture from the Meluhans, but immediately stepped back as Ayurvati went down. "What the hell are you doing, Ayurvati?" asked an horrified Shiva. "You are a doctor, a giver of life. Don't embarrass me by touching my feet." Ayurvati looked up at Shiva, her eyes shining with admiration and devotion. This was certainly a man worthy of being the Nilkant. Nandi entered Shiva's room, carrying a saffron cloth with the word Ram stamped across every inch of it. He requested Shiva to wrap it around his shoulders. As Shiva complied, Nandi muttered a quick, short prayer for a safe journey to Devagiri. "Our heroes wait outside, my lord. We can leave when you are ready," said Nandi. "Oh no, my lord," gasped Nandi. "Nandi," said an exasperated Shiva, "how many times must I tell you? My name is Shiva. I'm your friend, not your lord." "Oh no, my lord," gasped Nandi. "You are the Nilkant. You are the lord. How can I take your name?" Shiva rolled his eyes, shook his head slightly, and turned towards the door. "I give up. Can we leave now?" "Of course, my lord." They stepped outside to see 3 mounted soldiers waiting patiently. While tethered close to them were the 3 more horses, one each for Shiva and Nandi, while the third was assigned for carrying their provisions. The well organized Meluhan Empire had rest houses and provision stores spread across all major travel routes. As long as there were enough provisions for just one day, a traveler carrying Meluhan coins could comfortably keep buying fresh provisions to last a journey of months. Nandi's horse had been tethered next to a small platform. The platform had steps leading up to it from the other side. Clearly, this was convenient infrastructure for obese riders who found it a little cumbersome to climb onto a horse. Shiva looked at Nandi's enormous form, then at his unfortunate horse, and then back at Nandi. Aren't there any laws in Meluha against cruelty to animals? Asked Shiva with the most sincere of expression. Oh yes, my lord, very strict laws. In Meluha, all life is precious. In fact, there are strict guidelines as to when and how animals can be slaughtered and... Suddenly, Nandi stopped speaking. Shiva's joke had finally breached Nandi's slow wit. They both burst out laughing as Shiva slapped Nandi's hard on his back. Shiva's entourage followed the course of Jhelum, which has resumed its thunderous roar as it crashed down the lower Himalayas. Once on the magnificent flat plains, the turbulent river clamped down once again and flowed smoothly on. Once on the magnificent flat plains, the turbulent river calmed down once again and flowed smoothly on. Smooth enough for the group to get on one of the many public transport barges to sail quickly down to the town of the Brihateshpuram. From here on, they went east by a well-laid and marched road through Punjab, the heart of the empire's northern reaches. Punjab literally meant the land of the five rivers, the land of Indus, Jhelum, Chenab, Ravi, and Vyas. The four eastern rivers aspired to grasp the grand Indus, which flowed farthest to the west. They succeeded spectacularly after convoluted journeys on the rich plains of Punjab. The Indus itself found comfort and succor in the enormous, all-embracing ocean. The mystery of the ocean's final destination, though, was yet to be unraveled. What is Ram? Inquired Shiva as he looked down at the word covering every inch of his saffron cloth. The three accompanying soldiers rode at a polite distance behind Shiva and Nandi, far enough not to overhear any conversation, but close enough to move in quickly at the first sign of trouble. It was a part of their standard Meluhan service rule. Lord Ram was the emperor who established our way of life, my lord, replied Nandi. He lived around 1,200 years ago. He created our systems, our rules, our ideologies, everything. His reign is known simply as Ram Rajya or the rule of Ram. The term Ram Rajya is considered to be the gold standard of how an empire must be administered to create a perfect life for all its citizens. Meluha is still run according to his principles. Jai Shri Ram. He must have been quite a man, for he truly created a paradise right here on the earth. Shiva did not lie when he said this. He truly believed that if there was paradise somewhere, it couldn't have been very different from Meluha. This was a land of abundance, of almost ethereal perfection. It was an empire ruled by clearly codified and just laws, to which every Meluhan was subordinated, including the emperor. The country supported a population of nearly 8 million, which without exception seemed well-fed, healthy, and wealthy. The average intellect was exceptionally high. They were a slightly serious people, but unfailingly polite and civil. It seemed to be a flawless society where everyone knew his roles and played it perfectly. They were conscious, nay obsessive, about their duties. The simple truth hit Shiva. If the entire society was conscious of their duties, nobody would need to fight for their individual rights, since everybody's right would be automatically taken care of through someone else's duties. Lord Ram was genius. Shiva too repeated Nandi's cry, signifying glory to Lord Ram. Jai Shri Ram. Having left their horses at the government authorized crossing house, they crossed the river Ravi, close to Haryuppa, or the city of Hari. Shiva lingered there admiring Haryuppa at a slight distance, while his soldiers waited just beyond his shadow, having mounted their freshly allocated horses from the crossing house on the other side of the Ravi. Haryuppa was a much larger city than Srinagar and seemed grand from the outside. Shiva thought seriously about exploring the magnificent city, but that would have meant a delay in the trip to Devagiri. Next to Haryuppa, Shiva saw a construction project being executed. A new platform was being erected as Haryuppa had grown too populous to accommodate everyone on its existing platform. How the hell do they raise their magnificent platforms? Shiva made a mental note to visit the construction site on his return journey. At a distance, Jatta, the captain of the river crossing house, was talking to Nandi while he was about to climb the platform to mount his fresh horse. Avoid the road via Jaratagiri, advised Jatta. There was a terrorist attack there last night. All the Brahmins was killed and the village temple was destroyed. The terrorist escaped as usual before any backup soldiers could arrive. When in Lord Agni's name will we fight back? We should attack their country, snarled a visibly angry Nandi. I swear by Lord Indra, if I ever find one of these Chandravanshi terrorists, I will cut his body into minute pieces and feed it to the dogs, growled Jatta, clenching his fist tight. Jatta, we are followers of Suryavanshis. We cannot even think of barbaric warfare such as that, said Nandi. Do the terrorists follow the rules of war when they attack us? Don't they kill unarmed men? That doesn't mean that we can act the same way, Captain. We are Meluhans, said Nandi, shaking his head. Jatta did not counter Nandi. He was distracted by Shiva still waiting at a distance. Is he with you? He asked. Yes. He doesn't wear a caste amulet. Is he a new immigrant? Yes, replied Nandi, getting uncomfortable answering questions about Shiva. And you are going to Devagiri? Asked an increasingly suspicious Jatta, looking harder towards Shiva's throat. I've heard some rumors coming from Srinagar. Nandi interrupted Jatta suddenly. Thank you for your help, Captain Jatta. Before Jatta could act on his suspicions, Nandi quickly climbed the platform, mounted his horse, and rode towards Shiva. Reaching quickly, he said, We should leave, my lord. Shiva wasn't listening. He was perplexed once again as he saw the proud Captain Jatta on his knees. Jatta was looking directly at Shiva with his hands folded in a respectful namaste. He appeared to be mumbling something very quickly. Shiva couldn't be sure from that distance, but it seemed that the captain was crying. He shook his head and whispered, Why? We should go, my lord, repeated Nandi a little louder. Shiva turned to him, nodded, and kicked his horse into action. Shiva looked to his left as he rode on the straight road, observing Nandi goading his valiant horse along. He turned around and was not surprised to see his 3 bodyguard soldiers riding at exactly the same distance as before. Not too close and yet not too far. He glanced back at Nandi, suspicious that the jewelry Nandi wore was not merely ornamental. He wore 2 amulets on his thick right arm. The first had one symbolic lines which Shiva could not fathom. The second one appeared to have an element etching, probably a bull. One of his gold chains had a pendant shaped like a perfectly circular sun with rays streaming towards. The other pendant was a brown, elliptical, seed-like object with small serrations all over it. Can you tell me the significance of your jewelry, or is that also a state secret? Teased Shiva. Of course I can, my lord, replied Nandi earnestly. He pointed at the first amulet that had been tied around his massive arm with a silky gold thread. This is the amulet which represents my caste. The lines drawn on it are a symbol of the soldiers of the Paramatma, the Almighty. This means that I am a Kshatriya. I'm sure there are clearly codified guidelines for representing the other castes as well. Right, you are, my lord. You are exceptionally intelligent. No, I'm not. You people are just exceptionally predictable. Nandi smiled as Shiva continued. So, what are they? What are what, my lord? The symbols of the Brahmins, Vaishyas, and Shudras. Well, if the lines are drawn to represent the head of the Paramatma, it would mean the bearer is a Brahmin. The symbol for a Vaishya would be the lines forming a symbol of the thighs of the Paramatmas. And the feet of the Paramatma on the amulet would make the wearer a Shudra. Interesting, said Shiva with a slight frown. I imagine most Shudras are not too pleased about their placements. Nandi was quite surprised at Shiva's comment. He couldn't understand why a Shudra would have a problem with this long ordained symbol, but he kept quiet for a fear of disagreeing with his lord. And the other amulet? Asked Shiva. The second amulet depicts my chosen tribe. Each chosen tribe takes on jobs which fit its profile. Every Meluhan, under the advice of their parents, applies for a chosen tribe when they turn 25 years old. Brahmins choose from birds, while Kshatriyas apply for animals. Flowers are allocated to the Vaishyas, while Shudras must choose among fishes. The allocation board allocates the chosen tribe on the basis of a rigorous examination process. You must qualify for a chosen tribe that represents both your ambitions and skills. Choose a tribe that is too mighty, and you will embarrass yourself throughout your life if your achievements don't measure up to the standards of that tribe. Choose a tribe too lowly, and you will not be doing justice to your own talents. My chosen tribe is a bull. That is the animal that this amulet represents. And if I'm not being rude, what does a bull mean in your rank of Kshatriyas, chosen tribes? Well, it's not high as a lion, tiger, or an elephant, but it's not a rat or a pig either. Well, as far as I'm concerned, the bull can beat any lion or elephant, smiled Shiva. And what about the pendants on your chain? The brown seed is the representation of the last Mahadev, Lord Rudra. It symbolizes the protection and regeneration of life. Even divine weapons cannot destroy the life it protects. And the sun, my lord, the sun represents the fact that I am a follower of Suryavanshi king, the kings who are the descendants of sun. What? The sun came down and some queens? Teased an incredulous Shiva. Of course not, my lord, laughed Nandi. All it means is that we follow the solar calendar. So you could say that we are the followers of the path of the sun. In practical terms, it denotes that we are strong and steadfast. We honor our word and keep our promises even at the cost of our lives. We never break the law. We deal honorably even with those who are dishonorable. Like the sun, we never take from anyone but always give to the others. We sear our duties into our consciousness so that we may never forget them. Being a Suryavanshi means that we must always strive to be honest, brave, and above all, loyal to the earth. A tall order, I assume that Lord Ram was Suryavanshi king. Yes, of course, he replied, his chest puffed with pride. He was the Suryavanshi king. Jai Shri Ram, Jai Shri Ram, repeated Shiva. Nandi and Shiva crossed the river Vyas on a boat. Their 3 soldiers waited to cross on the following craft. The Vyas was the last river to be crossed, after which stretched the straight road towards Devagiri. Unseasonal rain the previous night had made the crossing house captain consider cancelling the day's crossing across the river. However, the weather had been relatively calm since the morning, allowing the captain to keep the service operational. Shiva and Nandi shared the boat with two other passengers as well as the boatman who rowed them across. They had traded in their existing horses at the crossing house for fresh horses on the other side. They were a short distance from the opposite bank when a sudden burst of torrential rain came down from the heavens. The winds took a sudden ferocity. The boatman made a valiant effort to row quickly across, but the boat tossed violently as it surrendered to the elements. Nandi stretched to tell Shiva to stay low for safety, but he did not do it gently enough. His considerable weight caused the boat to list dangerously, and he fell overboard. The boatman tried to steady the boat with his rowers to save the other passengers. Even as he did so, he had the presence of mind to pull out his conch and blow the emergency call to the crossing house on the other side. The other two passengers should have jumped overboard to save Nandi, but his massive build made them hesitate. They knew if they tried to save him, they would most likely drown. Shiva felt no such hesitation as he quickly tossed aside his Angavastra, pulled off his shoes, and dived into the turbulent river. Shiva swam with powerful strokes and quickly reached a rapidly drowning Nandi. He had to use all of his considerable strength to pull Nandi to the surface. In spite of being buoyant by the water, Nandi weighed significantly more than what any normal man would. It was fortunate that Shiva felt stronger than ever since the first night at the Srinagar immigration camp. Shiva positioned himself behind Nandi and wrapped one arm around his chest. He used his other arm to swim to the bank. Nandi's weight made it very exhausting work, but Shiva was able to tow the Meluhan captain to the shore soon as the emergency staff from the crossing house came rapidly towards them. Shiva helped them drag Nandi's limp body onto the land. He was unconscious. The emergency staff then began a strange procedure. One of them started pressing Nandi's chest in a quick rhythmic motion to the count of 5. The moment he would stop, another emergency staff would cover Nandi's lips with his own and breathe hard into his mouth. Then they would repeat the procedure all over again. Shiva did not understand what was going on but trusted both the knowledge as well as commitment of the Meluhan's medical personnel. After several anxious moments, Nandi suddenly coughed up a considerable amount of water and woke up with a start. At first, he was disoriented, but he quickly regained his wits and turned abruptly towards Shiva, screeching, "My lord, why did you jump in after me? Your life is too precious. You must never risk it for me." A surprised Shiva supported Nandi's back and whispered calmly, "You need to relax, my friend." Agreeing with Shiva, the medical staff quickly placed Nandi on a stretcher to carry him into the rest house that was attached to the crossing house. The other boat passengers were looking at Shiva with increasingly curiosity. They knew that the fat man was a relatively senior Suryavanshi soldier, judging by his amulet. Yet he called this fair caste unmarked man his lord. Strange. But all that mattered was that the soldier was safe. They dispersed as Shiva followed the medical staff into the rest house.